Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's time for this great DIY using only Dollar Tree products, and I mean only. So here's what you're going to need. First, you're going to need these book rings. You can find them in the office supply section. This project paint, also in the craft section. This hacksaw. This set of screwdrivers. Sandpaper. This super glue. And this fix-all adhesive in the hardware section. These two outdoor lanterns, one cake pan, one pie pan, one pizza pan, a hammer, pliers, marker, and a scrap piece of wood. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find center on each of the pans. And I'm going to show you in detail on the first one, but then you just repeat it for the next two. So take off the paper labels, rub off any extra glue if there is left behind. But this isn't so important because we're going to sand them later and we'll get most of the glue off then. Okay. So now you're going to start with the pizza pan, turn it upside down. Then you're going to take your tape measure, which I had a tape measure, so I didn't buy one, but they do sell small tape measures at the Dollar Tree. And the way you find the width is you want to hold your the metal tip of your tape measure on one edge of the pan, and you want to swing the tape measure back and forth. And what you're looking for is its widest width. So you'll notice that the tape measure will start to go from, say, 9 inches, and when you swing it, it'll go to 8 3/4, and then you swing it the other way to go 8 3/4. So you know that 9 inches is your longest measurement. And then you just want to mark at the halfway point. Turn your pan and repeat this 2 more times. It is the best, most efficient way to find the center. So once you have all 3 marked, you just want to extend those lines, and you'll see where they intersect will be the center of your pan. You could use a ruler for this. I just drew straight lines across. And just to double check that that's the center, there you go. So now we're going to take the small Phillips screwdriver, and here I am experimenting with the denseness of the pan. And you're going to mark the center so it comes through the other side. We're marking the underside of the pan as to not be left with, Sharpie marker marks. Then we're going to turn it over because what we're actually going to use these screwdrivers for is to puncture these 3 pans. So once you have it lined up on your mark, just give it a good whack, and then you'll see it actually does. It's hard to tell, but it actually did put a little tiny cross in it. And then you're going to take the small flathead screwdriver. But what you're going to do is you're going to take the flathead screwdriver, and we're going to extend each point of that little cross that the Phillips made. So you're just going to put it from the center out in each 4 directions. And we're just going to expand that opening. See? Okay. I found it a little bit easier to hold the small screwdriver at a bit of an angle, leaning in towards the hole so that it can pierce the metal pan a lot easier. Now we're going to repeat the same on the pie pan and the cake pan. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to line up the holes on the pizza pan and the pie pan. The pie pan is actually going to be a base for the tier tray, so it actually elevates it. It's going to just give it a little bit more of an authentic feel. So now I'm taking my needle nose pliers, but you could use a regular pliers for this. And I'm bending the 4 points that we just made by using the screwdriver. And I'm bending them in on the pie pan because this is going to be the underside of the tray. And then I'm going to bend them in slightly on the pizza pan, and I'm going to match them and bend them together. It's what's going to help hold them together. Now you're going to need this hole to be big enough for this steak to go through. This is what's actually going to hold the whole tray together, is these steaks and glue. And you see it does really work out really well, so just try to make it big enough. What I did here was I felt that I needed to go back with the small flathead screwdriver and make my hole a little bigger, but it is better to make it small at first and expand it as you need it than to make it too large in the beginning. So, as you can see, it's perfect. Yay. I'm going to line up the flaps together so that I can fold the pizza pan from the underside into flaps into the pie pan. And again, I'm having to expand the pizza pan flaps as well. Like I said, it's better to make them too small at first than to make them too large, because if they're too large, you can't make them smaller again. Now I'm testing it again to see if the hole is big enough, and it looks like it's just perfect. So what I'm going to do from the underside is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hammer those 4 points down. And again, I have 4 hammers in my house. I did not buy a hammer, but they have hammers at the Dollar Tree. So though I said I'm making this with only Dollar Tree products, I still don't want to waste my money and buy extra pliers and an extra hammer. So I don't know if you watched any of my haul videos where I got this glue, or actually where I got the pizza pans. There's a number on the back of the glue that you can text to put in your information about what 2 glues you're surfacing, and they'll recommend which glue to use. So this glue is recommended for plastic to metal, which is what we're going to use. We're going to use it in conjunction with the fix-all adhesive as well. First, I'm just running beads of glue down the 4 sides of the plastic lawn stake, trying to get it on each one of those ridges. Then we're going to cover it with this metal, the metal part of the light. We've removed the top of the light, and this is what's left, the tube in the middle. And we're going to have to let it sit, because the more crazy glue that you use, the longer it takes to dry. So let's put it off to the side and let that dry, and then we'll go ahead and work on the cake pan. So you're going to want to stick the back end of the steak into the cake pan, so that the point end is coming up through the center of the cake pan. And then like this, and then we're just gonna crazy glue the heck out of that and stick it inside the tube. So here I've decided to turn it over, and I'm gonna rest it inside a mason jar. I found a 32-ounce mason jar was just tall enough to to accommodate the stem. And then sorry this shot was off camera, but then I put the fix-all adhesive around the underside of the pie pan just to give it extra security. And I'm gonna let it dry here for overnight. Here's where I've taken the hacksaw and I've just cut a tiny tip off the underside of the pizza pan because I noticed that it was just elevating it ever so slightly past the pizza pan. So it wasn't laying flat, but I definitely recommend you doing this in the beginning before you insert this. So what I've done here is I'm checking for level while the glue dries. I want to make sure that it's the stakes are perpendicular to the pans and that the pans are even distance apart. And I've used clear packing tape from the Dollar Tree. I'm sorry it wasn't on my original things of list that I needed, but I've decided to use clear packing tape to hold the levels together while the glue dries overnight. So while our rack is set aside, we're going to take the top tube, the top metal tube, and we're going to puncture holes in it for the ring. Very conveniently, this screwdriver fit inside the tube. So we're going to use it to support the tube so it doesn't completely crush. You'll see though, it will, the metal is very thin, so it will squeeze the metal, but as we pull the screwdriver out, it will unsqueeze. It does take a little bit of extra twisting, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. And as you can see here, I'm having a little trouble. I need to call in for backup. Reinforcements! Can I borrow your hand? So what I'm actually using here is the long Phillips screwdriver because the head was much smaller than the short Phillips screwdriver, which is normal. But so I'm using that just to puncture a tiny hole. And this is going to support our binder rings. I had to go back the second time because I didn't quite get the hole straight through big enough. So I just inserted the screwdriver back in and hammered harder. And it did take a little bit more of a struggle to get the screwdriver out the second time because obviously I've punctured a hole in it. But I'm sorry most of it's off camera because I had to hold it close to my body to detach it, but I just kept wiggling the screwdriver in the opposite direction from the pipe until they came apart. And like I said, it did take a few minutes of struggle, so I don't want you to think you guys did something wrong if it doesn't, you know, if it takes you a long time to do it, okay? Here I ended up taking my rings off because it was starting to really hurt my hand. I was pinching actually between the screwdriver, but then it came out. I guess taking off your rings was the magic solution. Actually, my rings were sliding on the screwdriver, which is the real problem. Now we're going to take a binder ring, just one, and that's what we're going to use to make the handle. So we're going to open it up. We're going to feed one point of each of the binder rings into one end of the circle. And then when we get it in there and close it, we're going to add some crazy glue to it. Super glue. You know, the ideas are in your head, but the actual execution is happening here live on camera. So I'm realizing that it's a little bit more difficult to try to close the ring while it's in there. So that's what the struggle is here. Lining up the two ends of the circle so that the ring closes. The struggle is real. So So after all this struggle to try to get one end in, the other end in, and try to match up the little middle, I decided to push the ring all the way through to one side and then close it, glue it, and then when it dries, I'll swing it back. So now we're going to glue the final stake onto the final tube with the handle. Just pulling back some of the tape that I used for balance and level. And just going to add the crazy glue to the plastic, same as we did before. And then just stick the pipe on. And then let it dry. Overnight is best. Here's where I gently peel off the tape. You know, you don't want to break your glue seals, obviously, but it seemed to be pretty sturdy. I also don't want to bend your pie pan, because after all, they are from the Dollar Tree, so they're not like, you know, surgical grade steel or anything. So now we're going to sand all of the surfaces that we're going to paint, which is pretty much almost all the surfaces. Again, hindsight being what it is, probably should have sanded them before I put it together. But don't worry, I've learned my lesson for the next one. Because this is going to end up having a very rustic feel, I wanted a pretty, you know, medium grit sandpaper. So I'm going to go with the 150, which isn't very coarse and isn't very fine. It's sort of closer to fine. So as you can see here, we're just trying to give rough sand to all the areas. It's also a good opportunity to sand off the little sticker residue that was left over, and any glue mishaps that might have happened. Again, it's supposed to be rustic, so it's not having to look perfect, and we are going to paint it. So, but this will just help to paint it here better. This will actually just give it more of a weathered, worn look. So definitely just try to sand as much as you can. When it comes to the surface of the top of the pie pan and it's going to be the top of the cake pan, I did try to go in a circular motion, because any wear over the years, you know, that age look, any wear over the years would have probably taken on a circular pattern, but don't have to be precise about it. It just does add a little bit more authenticity to it. So when you're done, you're going to take a damp paper towel and you're just going to wipe off all of the dusty, sandy dust. And you just want to have it'll free of loose debris so that you can really get a good paint adhere. So here's another reason that I recommend you sand beforehand. I actually snapped off the neck from the base, and I've decided to go ahead and add some of the Fix All adhesive, which is sort of like that E6000 stuff, and use that. So it's going to take another 24 hours to dry, which is one of the main reasons it took so long to get it up on my channel. I wasn't feeling good last weekend, and this weekend it took a long time. So now we're going to take this craft paint and we're going to give it a faux finish, weathered look. We're just going to use a paper towel, which of course they sell paper towels at the Dollar Tree, but I had them at home, so I'm just going to use a dry paper towel to apply the glue, and I'm going to use a wet paper towel to give it that mottled look, to give it the faux, to create the faux finish. So here I'm just rubbing it on the bottom tray. Again, this is the first time that I'm doing this on this particular material, so I'm just trying to get a feel for how it's going to look. And this is the first time I'm using this paint, which I believe is tempera paint and will not be waterproof. So if you do like the way your finish comes out, you can go ahead and spray it if you want to keep it permanent. But it's, this is just to give you an idea of how to do it with the Dollar Tree products. But the good thing is about it being tempera paint is it'll wash off if it doesn't. So now I'm just taking the wet paper towel and I balled it up, and I'm stippling or modeling or just pouncing the wet paper towel to remove some of the paint. It's not a very good angle right here, but it'll pick up in a second. Okay, so as you can see in the insert, you get a better idea of what it's going to look like when it's done. And if you find a spot that's too heavy or find a spot that's too light, you just go back over it. There's really no rules to this. It's just, how you like it. It's the aesthetic of how you like it. But this way, this particular painting method, I felt like it did come out to look a lot like it was galvanized aluminum or galvanized steel, and old. You can just I'll put them as I need them. You just make them all wet, you know what I mean? So here's where you get a much better vantage point of the technique and how it works. So the key is to move the paper towel around, readjust the wrinkles in the paper towel from time to time. Twist your hand back and forth so you don't get any kind of pattern. Sometimes people just leave the paper towel and go back and forth, and you'll notice a pattern form, but you want to just keep it on the move. Now, I have no problem getting my hands in this. That's just the way I like to roll. But they do sell disposable vinyl gloves in the kitchen section at, the kitchen cleaning section. No, that's not right either. Where they sell the rubber gloves, they sell vinyl gloves, which are disposable for this kind of thing if you don't like to get paint on your hands. So. So here we also don't want to forget to paint the ring. The ring was bright silver. It probably would have been a good idea to sand it before we put it on, just to give it a less shiny finish. But, it's gonna, in my opinion, the longer that you would use a utilitarian tray like this, the handle would tend to be shiny anyway. So as the paint finish wears off, I feel like it's going to give more of an authentic feel, because I kind of feel like weather makes it look old, but the more you handle the handle, pun, the more you hold on to the handle and use the handle, it actually burnishes itself. So I figured that leaving it shiny wasn't going to be the worst thing. So here I'm going to paint the underside, and I'm not so concerned about its the stippling part, because it is underside, but I just wanted to make it feel like if it was held over someone's head, that it looked like you didn't just forget to paint the underside. It's just going to add to its authenticity. You don't want to look underneath and see a bright, shiny underside of your pan. We're also going to paint the base. So, and again, not the underside of the base, which probably would have been a good idea, but my thought process being that if it was outside and weathered, the underside of the base may not get any weather, so I wasn't too concerned about it.